Before we dive into today's episode, we'd like to take a moment to thank our amazing sponsors who make this podcast possible. First up, we have 3D learning experts. If you or someone you love struggles with dyslexia, dyscalculia, or similar learning differences, 3D learning experts is here to help. They specialize in virtual tutoring for students of all ages, from first grade to adulthood. Their expert tutors use the proven Orton-Gillingham method for language arts, structured and sequential program for writing success, and a multisensory approach to math. This ensures students enhance their reading, writing, spelling, and math skills in a way that suits their needs. Empowering students with confidence and success. That's what 3D Learning Experts is all about. To learn more, visit 3dlearningexperts.com. And when it's time to unwind, why not escape to fabulous Las Vegas with Casa Arce Vacations? Whether you're planning a quick getaway or a family reunion, Casa Arce Vacations offers 4 unique stays at one convenient location. Just under 3 miles from the Strip, choose from a cozy tiny house, 2 stylish studios, or a spacious 4-bedroom, 2-bath unit. All guests have access to amazing amenities, including a play pool, putting green, barbecue, fire pit, and each unit has its own private patio. Perfect for any occasion, they've got the ideal spot for your next adventure. Start planning your trip today at facebook.com/CasaRSAVacations. Thank you to our sponsors for their support and for the incredible services they provide. Now, let's get back to today's episode.
I'm Jess Arce, founder and CEO of 3D Learning Experts, where we specialize in virtual tutoring for students with dyslexia, dysgraphia, and dyscalculia. And as someone who has spent decades as a parent with learning challenges, children with learning challenges, and an educator for kids with learning challenges, I'm really excited to have our 2 guests on today who are both educators and in assisted technology specialists, because that's an area where people always ask me about and I don't have answers for people. So everybody, I am thrilled to have Eric Carter and Jacquie Knight both here today. Eric is with Burbank Unified School District and Jacquie is with Glendale Unified School District. Both have wonderful wealth of experience and integrating cutting-edge tools for classrooms and support for neurodiverse learners. So welcome, both of you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
So Eric and Jacquie, let us know from each of you how assisted technology has changed the way educators and students interact in your school district, and what most excites you about the future.
Eric, why don't you go ahead and start? Because I think
I'll start.
I think your school district has some really interesting things going on.
Well, I'd say education shifted during COVID. It kind of pushed districts into the digital age, where many instructors, educators were a little resistant, but we kind of had no choice as we had school closure. So this created a whole new way of delivering curriculum and instruction, and then how students are then to demonstrate their comprehension of curriculum instruction, because they had to do it all digitally. So that created various challenges for a lot of our students, especially students with disabilities. Mostly when we were working with our students before that, they were not on Chromebooks. They weren't doing things with Google Classroom, a few here and there and so forth. Teachers who were kind of a little more advanced using technology, but now it's everywhere. So that created some new challenges for us as to how do we remove some of these barriers? And that's the role of an AT specialist, is to identify barriers that these students may have in accessing their curriculum instruction, and then how we can remove those barriers. So with that, it got me to do some research, doing a pilot program, and then being able to provide certain technological tools so our students could be successful in the classroom.
Can I just add something to that, Eric? I think what's really important for your audience to understand is that everybody can benefit from technology, right? Instructional technology is amazing, right? There's a lot of really good instructional technology out there, but it's different from AT, because I just want to highlight what Eric said is it's about breaking down that barrier to access, right? So if a student's not able to access a book because they can't turn the page, right? That's a barrier to access, right? Or if they can't read the font because they're dyslexic, that's barrier to access. And so I just want to point that out, that everybody can benefit from technology. There's some really great instructional technology programs out there. I love apps, right? And Chrome games and Chrome extensions, but AT is just a little bit different. I like to think of it as the cherry on top, right? So you start with instruction in the classroom, and like thinking RTI, right? You've got your instruction, then maybe you have a little bit more intervention, then you have a little bit more intervention, but that barrier is still there. So then you put on the AT to help get rid of that barrier.
Well, as you were talking, Eric, I was thinking like that's kind of the silver lining of COVID, that all of the teachers had to start to use technology, because our kids in school today are going to need technology as soon as they're done in school. I don't know how many jobs there are available anymore where you don't need technology to some
Correct.
degree. So.
Yep. Even when I take my car to the mechanic, they plug the car into the computer and then start entering data and so forth, and have to read reports that come off the computer in the garage. I mean, it's just everywhere.
Right.
It's
To
same
kind of
with
piggyback on
and warehouse workers too. You're in a warehouse, you have to look at and you're an order picker, you have to be able to access your order. Tech is everywhere.
Yeah.
Yep. And to kind of piggyback on what Jackie was saying earlier, a lot of times we're in IEP meetings, parents get kind of confused with the difference of instructional technology versus assistive technology. A lot of times they think that the technology we provide is going to teach a skill or remediate a skill, and it does not. And we just want to reiterate, it's the access. So I always say, just to kind of give it a visual, is that a wheelchair is a form of assistive technology. It helps a person get from point A to point B, but it doesn't teach them to walk. And the other thing to point out too is that with assistive technology, it's not always high tech, such as a laptop or computer. It's really a range. So we do have low tech, which could be like a pencil grip that occupational therapists provide, or it could be they just need graph paper to help them line up their numbers when they're doing that.
Highlighters
are a low tech form of assistive technology, and it's just this range. Then the other end would be like a Chromebook with other programs on there to help them access, or it could be someone who has more disabilities and needs an eye gaze system in order to communicate,
or to access their academics, because eye gaze systems will allow that too.
Now, is the eye gaze system what people who cannot verbally communicate use?
Do you want me to get that one, Eric?
Sure, you're great at eye gaze.
So there are many forms of what we call AAC, alternative augmentative communication, right? An eye gaze system would mean that their point of access is through their eyes. You can have direct access, which would be with your hands, right? Your fingers or your hands. You can have a switch with your knee, your foot, your arm, your head, your eye, right? Or your cheek, right? They make all these different types of switches. But within an eye gaze, it's the point of interaction is the eyes. So there's an infrared camera kind of thing used. I don't know the exact, it's infrared tracking on the eyes. And that allows, you can set it up so that the activation is through the dwell. So how long I look at the eye gaze, or it can also be a right click or right click. And so, or a left click, right? So you can also have it set up so that it's a mouse click, so that people who use eye gaze system can also access curriculum, right? Because they may need that as well. And that would be for a person who demonstrates significant physical impairment.
Okay.
And that's under the umbrella of assistive technology. And under federal law, it doesn't state that an AT specialist must be the one to provide it. Federal law just states a knowledgeable person. So in some districts, like in Jacquie's in Glendale, it is the AT specialist who works primarily with that. For me in my district, it's the speech language pathologist who handles that area.
And in other districts, it's the occupational therapist.
Yeah.
So it's not, it's kind of open depending on what the district is looking for and how they provide the services.
So it's not always, so just for your viewers, it may be someone else in the district who provides that service.
Does every district have an assisted technology specialist?
Not necessarily a staff, but they may have someone they contract out with who comes in from time to time.
So does that depend on the size of the school district, the school, the socioeconomics of it?
I think it
affinity?
has to do more with the size of the district
Mhm.
and the population of the district versus funding.
Yeah, and what the need is as well.
Well, and so before we started recording, you guys mentioned how you support each other in your different districts. Can we share that with the audience? I thought that was quite interesting.
Sure, absolutely. You want to start, Jackie?
Either way. So I work for a school district that's right next door to the school district that Eric works in. And we're part of a SELPA. There's a third district within our SELPA, and all three of our districts, the AT specialists, there's 2 in my district, 1 in Eric's and 1 in the other district. So the 4 of us, we get together and we communicate and we make sure that within our SELPA, our reports match, right? And we let each other know how our districts are providing services. We also, when we have questions, we contact each other and say, what do you do for this? Or what are you doing for that? So we support each other. So, because being an AT specialist is kind of lonely. You're either one or one of 2 in an entire district. It's a little lonely, and it's so nice to be able to have another professional to bounce ideas off of.
Yeah, that's great. I mean, as a entrepreneur and a business owner, that can be a lonely place as well because you don't always have people to talk to. So I totally get that. What is SELPA? What does that stand for?
Special education local plan area.
One of the things that's great is the collaboration. And in education, you really need to be collaborating with others in your field, because too often in our districts, we operate in silos. And we need to see what's going on in other districts and making sure that, we're up to the latest. We're using, similar language. We're not saying one thing and the district next door is saying something completely different. And just for our own professional development, this is how I get a lot of my professional development, because I'm at a school site where every Tuesday they have, trainings and department meetings and all that stuff. I have nothing. I operate by myself. I got a technician who helps out. So that collaboration is great. And so I think next week, the 4 of us are meeting for a few hours, and we've got an agenda going of stuff that we need to talk about, because we want to make sure that we're kind of uniform within our SELPA. And we're kind of being a role model within our SELPA for the other related services personnel. And you're going to ask, what are related services personnel? That would be other providers of special education services, such as occupational therapists, physical therapists, school psychologists, adaptive PE teachers, and so forth.
And one of the things that's so nice about it is that if I have a student who moves, so for example, I work at a SELPA school. One of my schools is a SELPA program. And so if I have a student move out of the SELPA program back to Eric's district because they're ready for it, then I can just be like, hey, Eric, here's the student. This is the device that they have. And then there's this really seamless transition in regards to the technology. Unfortunately, what happens is for a lot of our students, when they change districts, they wait 6 months to 2 years
Wow.
to get their tech, right? Because the tech can be very expensive, right? Even let's just say, and we're talking more higher tech, I'm not talking the low tech, but let's say it's an iPad with some apps, right? Or it's a Chromebook with some Chrome extensions. So at the cheaper end, we're looking at $500. Right. So then the district has to, they have their different ways of procuring, and they have all these, it's a bureaucracy. So every district has a different way of getting these things. So we can make it seamless for our students, that only benefits the kid. Right. It's not about benefiting the adults. It's about benefiting the child. And it also, parents they sigh a breath of relief, right? So it's been really nice when I have a student that moves to a different SELPA, or a student comes into our, I'm sorry, not to a different district within the SELPA, or someone comes into our district from another SELPA. It's great. We can just, within our district, we just do it very, very seamlessly.
Is your child struggling with school, feeling overwhelmed? Introducing 3D Learning Experts, your child's personal tutor. Our expert educators provide personalized, one-on-one support tailored specifically to teach to your child's learning style. We specialize in helping students with dyslexia, dysgraphia, dyscalculia, and similar learning challenges. Our tutors are trained to provide effective strategies for reading, spelling, writing, and math. With our innovative virtual platform, your child can learn from the comfort of their own home. No more commuting or scheduling conflicts. Give your child the boost they need to succeed. Experience the difference with 3D Learning Experts. So when they're going to another district, they're moving to another part of California or another part of the country, is there anything parents can do to try to speed up the process?
Oh,
Well, so first of all, the students are allowed by federal law to take the device with them
for 2 months.
for 2 months.
For 2 months.
And
And then it has to be returned.
it has to be returned. But the parents also need to let the school district they're going to be aware, hey, I'm coming in to your district. My student has an IEP and they have an iPad because they need it for communication. It's an AAC device. It's great for the parents to kind of preempt and inform the school they're going to ahead of time. So the school doesn't, so when the student starts on day one, they're not like surprised by it. I mean, it shouldn't be because they should get the IEP ahead of time. Parents, are responsible for providing that. The schools also do a request for records, but sometimes when they're asking a school district to send records, from here to, let's say, Denver, Colorado, it doesn't happen overnight. It's a process. So it's just great for parents just to be proactive and say, hey, Mike, we're going to be moving there. My kid has an AC device. This is the app that they use to communicate. And then hopefully they'll contact, like say me in my district. And then we have a way of transferring that profile electronically then to update on that iPad. So it can be sort of seamless. And that's something Jacquie and I have worked on that we do very seamlessly. So when that kid starts day one, I'm there with the iPad and transfer the profile, and I can give them our device and I return Jackie's device to her.
Mm-hmm. The other thing, something that happened recently to me that was so lovely, is I had a student who moved here from San Francisco, and I saw that there was an AAC device within the when I was doing the records review. So I asked, who's the SLP? And the parent gave me the SLP's email address. I emailed the SLP, and she was able to send me everything right away. So the student had the exact same layout that he had when he was in the other school district. So for parents who are watching, I have a suggestion. Number one, have either a binder or a file folder where every IEP and assessment report goes. Okay, so it's like nice bright color, like a big red binder, and you want those big, the
3-inch one.
The 3-inch binders, right? The big binds. And every time you get an IEP and you've signed it and everything's agreed upon, hole punch it, put it in. Get an assessment report, hole punch it, put it in. Because you never know when it's going to become in handy. I had a student who is exiting the district. He's 22 and he's exiting. And she asked, do you have this report or that report? And I was like, oh gosh, maybe we have it somewhere, but she didn't have it, right? And it was not a report that I did, right? So I had to do some file digging to find it. And it was great that I was organized enough to be able to find it. But you can't always count on the adults to do that. You have to take care of your child and keep all of that in one place so that should you move, schools, districts, whatever the case may be, even specific case managers sometimes, then you have that information.
Yeah, that's great advice. I was trying to get one of my kids' ARDs because we lived in Texas and an IEP there is called an ARD. And I called, I called here, I called there, I called all these different places. And at the end, they said, we don't have anything from 2012. So, I was never able to get that proof. So had I had a big red binder, I would have known where the information was.
Right. And it could be any color. I was just saying,
right, but red's great.
When you think of the binder, nobody chooses red, right? Everybody chooses black or white. So something that's just big and different. And then when you go to enroll your student at the next school, you have all the documents right there. Like if there was a health plan, you have the health plan right there. There was a behavior intervention plan, you have the behavior intervention. You have all those things. You don't, it's just for peace of mind. When a child graduates from high school and they go to community college or they go to university and they go to enroll in the disabilities program, whether it's DSPS or called something else, you have everything right there. You have the summary of performance, you have the last triennial, you have the last IP, and then it can all go there. In I don't know if it's nationally, but in California, our community colleges and state universities, so UC and states, all follow ADA, all follow the ADA. All our kids end up with 504s if the student enrolls in the disabilities program, right? And they
Really?
ask for that.
Yep.
The schools ask for that.
Yep.
Where do they get the 504s?
From the disability program.
So in the high school level or in the college level?
College.
The college at the
The
university.
college or the university all have a disability center.
Right.
And so they bring in their documents there, and then they work out with what accommodations they can provide at their university or college.
And that's a 504. I did not.
That's under, yeah, that's under 504. And
Okay.
what's really interesting is some of the schools actually have AT specialists.
Hmm.
So if you bring the AT assessment plan and it says you need optical character recognition, speech to text, text to speech, whatever the case may be, then it's all there. And the AT specialist or the case manager has it right there so they can give that to the student. Well, one of our well-kept secrets in the state of California is the Department of Rehabilitation. Now, Department of Rehabilitation is a program for adults. Actually, it's starting younger now, but let's just talk about, so it actually starts at age 16. But if we think about college age students, our students can go to Department of Rehabilitation and they can go and they can get a plan. They get a DOR plan. I'm not a DOR expert, but I know through my own child's life, you get a plan, right? And that could include the technology that you need to go to school. There's so many wonderful services out there for students. And again, I can only talk about LA County, our area, but there are outside organizations that also address AT. I like to refer my families to our local parent resource center. Every district has a PRC. It's either a PRC or an FRC. They can call it's both, a parent resource center, family resource center. And our FRC is so cool because they have an AT department. And I have connected with them and they do really great trainings. I attended one actually today and I was so impressed. And they're a resource for families. So if you're looking for academic tools, you can contact them and they can help the families. And then they help the families ask for an AT assessment, right?
Okay.
So my goal is to never have an outside person say to them, your kid needs an AT assessment. My goal is that we find the students before it gets to that point, right? I want everybody to know I'm available on my school sites, all my special ed friends, right? And so that if they see a student who's struggling with reading and writing, they can say, hey, do you have any ideas? And then I can give some ideas. Did you try that? And and then we can have that conversation.
Now, let me ask you, because my understanding is teachers in California cannot suggest that a child might have a learning difficulty, learning disability. Is that?
That doesn't follow federal law.
No, I've not heard that personally.
I've never heard that. And in fact, federal law says that school psychologists can say that a student has a learning disability.
Oh yeah, the school psychologist, but the teacher can't recommend. Was what my understanding is the teacher can't recommend.
They can ask the school psychologist to assess for a learning disability.
A teacher can?
Yeah,
a parent doesn't have to request it?
Absolutely, but the parent has to request it. The parent has, we can say we think maybe we need to look to see if there's a learning disability, and then the parent will either agree or disagree to assessment. But teachers can't make that diagnoses.
Right.
And school psychologists don't make diagnoses. Dyslexia is a diagnosis. Dyscalculia is a diagnosis. We don't make diagnoses. We have
Mhm.
eligibility categories.
Oh, that explains why it never says dyslexia.
Right.
We talk about different processing challenges a student may have, visual processing challenges,
Auditory
Auditory
processing,
auditory
is
processing,
a
et
big
cetera.
one. Mhm.
Yes.
Working memory, simultaneous, all those different psych terms.
And then it goes into that broad category of specific learning disability, or maybe it's other health impaired. So those are categories, but we don't diagnose for a specific like dyslexia or anything like that.
Gotcha.
I'll have parents who will come with outside assessments that have the medical diagnoses. Like just like a parent might say that their child has ADHD. Well, the only person who can determine ADHD is a medical doctor, right? So they'll come in with that, and then we can say, okay, either they have a learning disability, and we can call it dyslexia during the meeting. It's not that it's a secretive word, but we can't diagnose.
Gotcha. Well, thank you for clearing that up. I've always wondered why the schools will never write down dyslexia, and now I know.
And we're not clinicians, and that's the job of a clinician. And for ADD, ADHD, that would actually, in our district, it goes into the category of other health impaired.
Right.
But what I have found is that a lot of students who have a specific learning disability, there's some attention deficits that come along for the ride too. And so
it often goes together.
Yeah. And like executive functioning skills
absolutely.
or
And
lack,
those are things
lack
where,
of.
right. And an AT specialist could even be consulted and say, hey, do you have some ideas? And we can consult with a case manager or school psychologist. We don't necessarily have to be in the IEP or even listen to the IEP, but they can always ask for suggestions, and then they can share that at their IEP meeting.
And I'll have teachers who will contact me, and we'll have like a little discussion about a student. And I will say, hey, can you send an assessment plan out? Or I will say, I don't know if they need an assessment plan. Let's try these tools first, and then let me know. And oftentimes those tools will just do the trick.